So I'm going to call to order the U.S. Just Executive Board meeting for March 16, 2024. The Executive Board is meeting in person at our headquarters in St. Louis, Missouri. I see that all of the members are present, but for the record, I'll call the roll. This is Randy Bauer. I am present. Kevin Pryor is also here, and Chuck Unruh,
Present.
and Mike Tough-Power,
Here.
and David Hayter,
Here.
John Fernandez,
Present.
Vish,
Here.
and Leela,
Here.
and
How long
Our
do we have to
acting
have war before our last names get used?
I'll just, someday I'll figure it out. And our acting executive director, Renee Bartlett.
Here.
So we have all of the 9 executive board members are present. The first order of business is disclosure of any new conflicts of interest since we last met. Hearing none, we will move on. The next order of business is the financial report for February 2024. Recognize Vice President of Finance, Chuck Unruh.
Now, thank you, Mr. President. We closed the 3rd fiscal quarter. Of course, that's going to be the end of February. The start of March is our 4th, and that's our strong part of our business cycle. 3rd quarter was very good to us. We are keeping membership revenues above last year by about 8%. They're slipping a little as we go into March, but we anticipate a pickup in the 4th quarter. So membership continues to be very, very strong. We budgeted for it last year. Of course, our budget, as you well know from the reports that are circulating, is approximately $1 million surplus at this time. That's a very healthy budget, but we'll talk surplus. We'll talk a little more about that and why we are $1 million in surplus. But for right now, the net worth of the corporation continues to improve. Next year, it'll be different. With our programs kicking in, our net worth may possibly go down depending on donor contributions. So I'll talk briefly about that $1 million surplus that we have. We received $250,000 from a sponsor in this quarter. So that's part of it. Well, another endowment came in that I think's been announced also, a completion of endowment called the Barber Endowment. So altogether, that was $320,000. Our investments recovered from Doomsday October 31st, another $400,000. So when we start parsing it out, we're pretty much on budget, doing a little better than budget operationally. We're on the positive side, even with all the filling the staff positions, all the activities we have going on. We are still very, very much net neutral to positive, and Renee can tell us a little more on the operations after I go through this. But so when we look at this $1 million and we parse it out, some of those things were not in our control, such as I don't know how much we'll get in donations next fiscal year or the year after. And it's a wonderful surprise when it happens. So these are all good things that are occurring to us. Our endowment fund, the LMA trust, the reserve fund, all of them are performing according to the strategies in place by our investment committees. We are now at a new record of assets under management in those funds of $5,663,000. I don't think any of us expected this to happen so quickly, but things are very, very good. Our projected earnings for the budget next year coming from our assets, just the cash flow from dividends will be north of $250,000, real money. We have had surpluses in the past that were $10,000. We do budgets that are $10,000, and to actually have investments now that will hold their own and ensure these endowments far into the future It means all we have to do is have good cost controls as we go into these invitationals and be good stewards of the money. The future is there. So this is a very rosy report. Know that we face some challenges coming up on the investment side. A capital investment of 400,000 at least in upgrading the rating system, plus another 100,000 will be necessary in capital expenditures to repair some of the software in our membership services. Now, we use those as a go-by. Most likely, we'll have a firm number as we get closer, somewhere 100 or below. So all is well. We anticipate in June that Life members will return a record $55,000 in reimbursement. That news will go out later today for a vote by the LMA trustees. And we anticipate that is a record. The last time was 45,000. So each year, Life members, asset trustees continue to step up and try to do their part in the reimbursement of operational expenses that are attributable to Life members. Now, can we ever get there fully? Oh, maybe. We're working on it. But this is a step in the right direction for the resources that we have in that account. And one says, well, how much do we have in that account? We're now at 1,673,000. The peak was 1999 at 1,900,000. So we're coming back to 1999 standards slowly but surely. And at this, I'll ask Renee to make a couple comments on operations and where we're going financially, and then I'll open it up to questions. Thank you.
The only thing I would add is that on operations, we're sitting with a 6-month operating reserve at the end of February. Everything looks strong.
And I don't know, this has been pretty handy. I've circulated. I think everyone got a copy of Misty's report. But there's some very good metrics on here. And that she includes in our reports. Comparative metrics comparable to a year ago, 2 years ago. And sometimes we get lost in the battle and don't see that we're actually winning the game. And this has been a real eye opener, and it's a good summary for us.
So I'll make a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
First of all, yeah, I mean, the point you make is well taken, Chuck, that there are unforeseen financial events that we can't forecast. And I think it's important for us when we're thinking about the financials to split it into operating expenditures and revenue and then into, the other stuff, which supports, the endowments and Life member assets, et cetera. So that's the first thing that I would say is just thinking about it operationally. You made the point that we're still running in pretty good shape in that respect. And I think that's something we have to be mindful of. The other is that, and I've made this point to the delegates, when you continually run a surplus, at some point in time, you're going to reach what you consider to be the optimal level of those the resources that you set aside, and you will actually spend down. You will run a deficit, and it's okay, because our purpose is to maintain sufficient surplus, but that is not our mission as an organization. So to the extent that we build up to what we consider that adequate amount, and some years then run a deficit, it's still okay, because you can't continually run a surplus every
We
year.
may run a deficit on the endowment side without incoming sponsors, but not the operational side. And that's where you said it was split. So we're very sensitive to the operational side.
Well, even on the operational side, if the resources that are available to support operations, you have your savings, and if they have reached you see this with state governments all the time, they will have a ceiling on what can be in its reserve funds. And when you hit that ceiling, it acts like a spillover, like a dam. The water that flows over the dam goes back into the river that's available for expenditure. Now, in current years operationally, you may have a deficit, but that spillover is also available resources. And that's what we may encounter when we make the determination as to exactly how much needs to be in our reserve account.
Those are all good points. We are mark to market, so we'll have a budget coming up and we'll be working on that budget. But at the same time, on the bottom line, when you're mark to market, you could have violent swings either way.
Right.
So
Well, that's why the dividends are, that's real cash, as you point out, and that's,
a real cash,
Right,
250,000,
right.
that's not our growth component. And I could go into detail on how we invest, but I'm gonna spare you this
Well,
morning.
I'm gonna make one more point. And that's that we came out of a high inflation period. And costs go up for US Chess as well as everything else. And we are encountering pressures. And we hear it from our members in some of the services that they expect and that we should deliver to them. And in those instances, we have to look at our revenue structure. And we have not raised dues in a number of years, even in a high inflation period. And I think we're gonna have to consider that and present that, the case for additional dues in return for increased services for our members. And that's certainly something I'm gonna take a close look at in the next, coming month.
And we have mentioned that in the past, and we're 100% behind looking at the inflation rates. Not even the government is comfortable with the inflation rate at this time. They don't know which way it's going. Auto insurance was up 21% in the last year. I mean, everyone shops, so we're not coming back. The rate of inflation is only coming down, but it's still there. It lingers on. And from our payroll to our expenses to the idea that Boeing can't get enough airplanes out and airfares may go up. There are a lot of factors going on that go to attribute to what you're saying is we have to look at what we're charging for our membership and make sure that we adequately have a number that supports the mission. So thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions or comments from me?
Yeah, where are we relative to our forecast from this time? When we presented our budget, where are we relative to our forecast?
We are $1 million. I think I'll have to go into it, but we're a little bit $1 million surplus right now.
But that gets into the whole issue of, we have these unexpected,
1,041,551 is where we are right now. And we
Compared to
had,
what we were projecting to be, where.
oh yeah, we're projecting, our projection, I don't have the budget here with me. On the budget was like 1.2 million ahead of where we forecast. Remember last year, we were forecasting for the 2 years a net loss.
right, and that's,
Because of the inflationary forces coming through the economy. And there has been obviously some significant decrease in.
and membership
inflationary
growth.
forces.
We did not project the membership growth that we've had either over that 2-year period.
We did project increases in membership owing to increased membership revenue. So we said that we'd have more members and then we'd have more revenue, but not an increase in the revenue per unit.
But we have had membership growth that exceeded what we thought was
Yeah.
going to be the growth.
Oh, absolutely. We were 8.3% up the month before. Now we're about 7% above target.
Right.
And it says 110% on the budget, but I'll go with 7 right now as the cutting edge number.
Any other questions?
Oh,
comments?
these are good times. We are very solid financially.
Well, thank you, Chuck. I think the one other business to come out of open session, is as the executive board members know, we conducted interviews yesterday in person in St. Louis with 4 candidates to be the executive director. This was part of a lengthy process. We had over 50 applicants for the executive director position. We then narrowed that down after looking at resumes, cover letters, and references to 17 individuals that we split into two-person teams from the executive board members and did full Zoom interviews with those 17. They were about an hour in length. And then narrowed it to 4 individuals that we had in-person interviews with. And coming out of those, we were impressed with all 4 candidates. We're very pleased with a recommendation which was unanimous. And I will make a motion that the US Chess Executive Board appoints Renee Bartlett as the US Chess Executive Director, effective immediately. Is there a second for that motion?
Second, yeah.
And we have a second. Is there discussion? I will say, Renee, you have shown yourself to be very effective interim executive board director, executive director. And we're excited to make that permanent and to work with you in the months to come.
And I'll just add that I'm really glad. I think it was important that we do a national search and that we did a national and thorough search. And there was no question but that Renee rose to the top.
See no further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Renee, or condolences, whichever it may be.
Thank you.
That's too much data.
Is there any other business before we go into closed session? Seeing none, we're gonna go into closed session and we'll get back to you.